Once you have determined your why as a 7-step Rosetta problem-solving solutionist, you can bear any who, what, when, where, or how.
Hi, I'm Joel Freeman. I'm the president and the founder of the Freeman Institute Foundation, and we're going to talk about this little thing called the Rosetta Stone. It's a 1,700-pound slab of rock that the French soldiers unearthed on the west bank of the Nile. That was about in 1799, the summer of 1799. And from there, they noticed in the very bottom part of the Rosetta Stone that it was written in Greek. Someone in the team could read Greek, and it said the same thing shall be inscribed in all 3 inscriptions. That's what they found. And so they figured, this is going to be easy peasy. We know what the Greek says, and if the same thing is in all 3, then this will be a piece of cake. This will be easy to figure out. Little did they realize it took 23 years to crack the code to hieroglyphics, thereby unlocking the secrets of ancient Egypt. Now, I wanted to share with you, I've been interested in the Rosetta Stone for at least 5 decades, but the last 2 decades really focused on the Rosetta Stone. I see what I'm doing is I'm taking this ancient artifact and transforming it, turning it into a modern metaphor for problem solving. Now you're in business, if you're in business, I should say, you're in business to solve problems. So if you're in the people moving business, whether it's bus transportation, trains, automobiles, planes, and you're moving people from point A to point B, you're solving a problem. Someone wants to get from Zurich to Vienna. Someone wants to travel in some way. If you're selling refrigerators, you're helping to solve the problem of making sure that food is edible, I should say. And so whatever you're doing, you're solving problems. Now, when a business ceases to solve problems, then they're out of business. So what I'm doing with the Rosetta Stone, I'm looking all around us and I'm seeing that AI is a very big part of our now, let alone our future. We have ChatGPT, we have Siri, Alexa, all kinds of different AI-powered technology. And I don't know what era you come from, but the era I come from, if you had an idea, you would go along the line and go all over the place trying to figure it out, going down some blind alleys until finally you fulfill the intention of the idea. In this day and age, we have people that within a matter of a millisecond or a few seconds, they punch something into ChatGPT and all of a sudden, almost instantly, have a poem or a song or a book. And my concern, I am not against AI, I'm not against technology. I do know it can get dystopian rather quickly in the wrong hands. I want to offer that insight, but I do believe that it is something that can be very useful. The metaverse and all kinds of different means of communication and technology. But I see my fear, my concern for this generation growing up is that it's like muscles can atrophy. The brain can atrophy if not used. The Cleveland Clinic has some research that it takes about 2 to 3 weeks for the muscles to atrophy, and sometimes it can take 5 days if there's disuse. There's no resistance to the muscles, and that's why people who go up to space stations or in the NASA or up on spaceships, they have to constantly have something that resists their muscles, otherwise they will atrophy. The brain can atrophy in a similar fashion, I believe. And so what I'm hoping to do and planning to do and will do is to take this ancient artifact and then turn it into something that is a storyline about the Rosetta Stone. Now, we know that there's a history. The first zone of a 5,000 square foot traveling exhibit that I'm designing is all about the history. And you have situations with Napoleon, the Napoleonic Egyptian military campaign. There's all kinds of savants that have gone on this particular trip. And there's just so much happening with around the history of the Rosetta Stone, and it goes back to 196 BC, when the Rosetta Stone was first designed and created. And so then you have a situation where now we have something called cracking codes. And another zone is all about cracking codes, the enigma that the Nazi Germans used. We have the Cyrillic code, all the different codes that civilizations have used to hide information, proprietary information from other civilizations. There's business intelligence, and you know it's big business for one country to steal technology from another country, and to get diagrams and to get all kinds of technical information, military or otherwise. And so another zone is all about language and culture and how the two connect, and sometimes they collide. But just like in hieroglyphics, once they cracked the code to hieroglyphics, then now they said, oh my goodness, women were working and they were being paid. Here's some receipts that reveal that. Oh, that town existed. That battle happened. Or that family existed. And so it brought to light the ancient Egyptian culture just by understanding the language. And just the reverse is the case. They say, I know here in America, they look at the second grade classroom and the literacy rate, and they can determine how many prisons to build, because illiteracy is a ticket to prison. And so the whole idea of becoming literate and being able to read road signs and to understand the world, read books, that is something that just unlocks secrets for someone. And learning a new language is a very similar impact and effect on a human being. So then finally, it's taking the word Rosetta, which is 7 letters, and developing 7 steps for solving pretty much any problem that one might have. And there are different types of problems. There's organizational development problems. There's technical problems. There's human interaction, decision-making, innovation problems, creativity, environmental problems. There's change management, health and safety problems, process problems, and ethical and moral problems. All kinds of categories of problems, at least 14, 15 main categories of problems. And so to be able to have a process wherein one can go by to, the R would stand for recognizing there's a problem. You know, you can't help someone unless they recognize there's a problem. If you come up with a new innovative way to sell real estate, wow, you now can master the business of selling real estate. You've solved a problem in a whole different way than anyone else has, perhaps. And then there's obtaining, obtaining information. And so what I want to do, and then I'm going to go through all 7, is I'd like to take us on a little journey about the Rosetta Stone and understand just a little bit of how, through the iterative process, the 7-stage process, a 7-step process that comes from military science, military intelligence, to learn how to maybe apply these principles in other ways. And then to maybe innovate and create something, to invent something using these 7 steps. And so first of all, recognizing a problem, we know that everyone who toured ancient Egypt, witnessed strange markings, and even up until the 16th, 17th, 18th, early 19th centuries. There are markings all over the place. It was like some kindergarten classes were let loose on the environment, and they put this graffiti all over the place, and an eye over here and a snake over there, and it just was something that people looked at it in the 1800s, in the 19th century, and said, what is this? And so the whole idea is that, these etchings and carvings, they knew somehow would tell stories about the culture. And that they want to know what is the best way to decipher and this linguistic puzzle. And why did this language die out? That we know that almost every day there's some type of language or some type of communication that seems to be dying out, or every month, every year. And it's just a terrible situation, because it just gets lost to our history and our understanding of cultures. And so the first step in problem solving is to first admit there's a problem and recognize it, that there's some obstacles in some way of some sort, and then to clearly define them and diagnose the situation. And this involves understanding what the issues are, what causes it, how it came about to impact your goals or someone else's goals, positively or negatively. Some of the greatest ideas have come out of people complaining. And they say, "Oh my goodness, You're standing in line in the bank, and two people ahead of you, someone's complaining about something, and suddenly springs an idea. Out of their problem, now comes an idea, a multi-million-dollar a year business coming out of hearing about someone else's problem and then going about solving it." And so that is a very important thing. Then comes obtaining information. Now we know that there are many, the problem solvers, that gathered as much information as possible to understand the problem, the context of hieroglyphics. And this, I'll tell you, when in 1799, in the summer of 1799, when the Napoleon soldiers unearthed the Rosetta Stone on the west bank of the Nile, they were perplexed by it, and they. But when they read the Greek part of it that said that the same thing will be inscribed in all three inscriptions, they then brought it to Cairo, about 100 miles away or so. And they thought that the savants, these intelligent men and women that came with understanding of botany and architecture and agriculture and all kinds of different things, and came along with Napoleon. And so they figured, well, we'll figure this out pretty quickly. But what happened is that they didn't. And this became an international puzzle that was begging to be solved by people who were naturally drawn to brain teasers and conundrums and enigmas and all kinds of different things. They're fascinated with such an obviously significant riddle. And so information was shared sporadically, by people from England and France and Italy and Germany. We had a gentleman from Denmark and other places. And so obtaining this information, pulling this in, was a big part of helping to solve this particular international puzzle. Now, in the 17th century, there's a guy named Kircher, who understood a little bit about the phonetic meanings of hieroglyphics. Because remember, people are coming to Egypt, they're seeing all these hieroglyphics, and you had in the 9th century a gentleman from Iraq, Washia, he had written and codified some things about hieroglyphics. In the 10th century, Al-Nadim, an Arab, found this research, and it incentivized him to take a closer look. Al-Drizi, in the 13th century, another Arab that went crazy over this and trying to come up with some ideas. Balzanius, we had different other ones, Bartholomew, Zoega, a Danish priest. All these folks, all the way up to the time when the Rosetta Stone was found, people had tried to figure out what is going on with hieroglyphics. Now, when Jean Champollion came on the scene, he was one who had grown up in Figeac, France, and what happened with him is that he was in such a place where he was his dad was a rare book dealer, and so it doesn't defy imagination to figure out that he maybe even had access to some of the 13th, 14th century writings, and maybe that's part of what spawned his interest. And so, data gathering thrives in the midst of questions, any questions, and the decoders of the Rosetta Stone, they demonstrated that there's no such thing as a stupid question, and that's a takeaway from our talk here. And it's just as we think about things, we ask questions. Stupid answers, maybe, but no stupid questions. So, are there any other artifacts that we could compare this with similar hieroglyphics, symbols on them? That was a question. Another one, could there be another full-size replica or Rosetta Stone? Because it did indicate in the Greek that this information in the Rosetta Stone and we're not going to get into what was on this, the information on here, but right now, but this information was decreed in other similar type stones. So they're thinking, oh, maybe there might be some other stones out there. Another good, valid question. Are these symbols in the hieroglyphics, are they alphabetic? Are they phonetic? Are they symbolic? Do you read them left to right, right to left? Valid questions. Can we understand and read the Greek in a way that it was written in 3 inscriptions? Is there enough of the 14 lines? Because remember, the Rosetta Stone, maybe you didn't know this, but the Rosetta Stone is broken off. It should have been about this tall, approximately. And only 14 lines of hieroglyphics existed. So is that going to be enough? Another valid question. And then what are the symbols? There are 5.5 symbols that are surrounded by an oval line, and so those are called cartouches. And also, what if we took the time to count all the Greek letters, all the hieroglyphic letters, all the demotic script letters, and then maybe mathematically we try to compare the cadence of the other 2 inscriptions with what we know in the Greek inscription? Another valid question. So that all the information gathering, all the questions, gained a lot of information that helped to crack the code. And then they needed the S, so R-O-S. So you recognize you got a problem. You then obtain the information. Now it's time to specify the goals. And the goals are where you start to think about, okay, am I solving this problem to become famous, to become rich? Because it depends on the goals. What's driving a person? Is a person being driven by ego? And so, in the 19th century, the people who'd been bitten by the code cracking bug, used any means possible to figure out the meaning of hieroglyphics so that all humans interested in the story could better understand the mores and the folkways of the ancient Egyptian peoples and the culture. And so the whole idea is clarifying your goals. When you're in code cracking, when you're in the involvement of solving a problem, is to what do you hope to achieve by solving this problem? Maybe it's solving the problem of malaria. Maybe it's solving the issues around cancer or rheumatoid arthritis or sciatica nerve issues or sudden death in infant syndrome. And what outcomes do you want to see? And then the whole idea of evaluating the options is very important. So ROSE, evaluate the options. In many ways, the people from around the world who are weighing the various possibilities were in their own information silos. And we know that many teams have silos, many groups have silos, without any real-time understanding as what other people were doing. So you had the English polymath, Thomas Young. He was working in his own silo, and he came up with some very interesting ideas. He had the French scholar de Sausset. He was in his own silo. The Swedish diplomat, Johannes Ackerblad, he was in his own silo. And you had all these different folks. Of course, today there's digital technology. Back then, no such thing. And so any information that was sent, it would probably take weeks, months, or maybe even years for it to reach the ears or the eyes of someone else in another country. And so what happened is that all these options began to come in. And I think that the pro tip here that we can walk away with is that there's no excuses, there's no quitting, no blaming. And this epic drama, it provides hope, revealing that there's no need to wait for a perfect team to evolve in order to provide world-class solutions. You can have big egos involved, long periods of silence. And so that's a big part of the Rosetta Stone story, which I find to be absolutely intriguing. And it's proof that even though it took more than 2 decades to solve the problem, with the involvement of all the silos and egos and minimal clues and wrong assumptions and no previous experience, coupled with geographical distance, they still ended up solving the problem. And so explore these possible solutions. And once you've studied the problem, brainstorm the potential solutions and consider the pros and cons of each solution that is evaluated. And that brings us right to the next one. ROSET is test each solution that is derived. And you have one man, Jean-Francois Champollion. He had this tenacious desire to be known as the one who cracked the code to hieroglyphics. He organically became the epicenter of information analysis and solutions testing. And his knowledge of Coptic, I mean, my goodness, when he was a teenager, 16 years of age, he understood like 8 or 9 languages, Latin and Hebrew and Farsi and all these different languages. It's just an amazing situation. So he had various other Semitic languages coupled with his dedication to understanding hieroglyphics, and that allowed him to effectively test for possible solutions to the encrypted text. And he was a rather unusual child, according to the several books that I've read about him. Highly emotional, mercurial, quixotic. He was brilliant. Never once exhibiting the bent toward being a team player. All of that, any strength overused can become a vulnerability, but he played to his strengths as much as possible. Even though Thomas Young came late to the game, he just wanted to help, regardless who got the credit. And so the pro tip to this is just to identify the possible solutions and based on the information gathered. And then before implementing each solution, test it on a small scale and run a simulation if possible. Brainstorming and ideation techniques can be helpful in generating these multiple potential solutions. Then take action. Another T, ROSETT, is take action. And it generally is a thinker-doer person who chooses the best solutions and then implements them. Jean Champollion, he worked tirelessly. He sought to understand the code to hieroglyphics. He became proficient in many languages. He was hyper-focused for the long haul, and that's a very important key if you want to be a world-changing solutionist. He took extensive notes of his findings, and he was open to hearing from others. And so, and by the way, when he ultimately cracked the code to hieroglyphics in September of 1822, they said he fainted and he was kind of out of it for about 5 days. That's how much he put into it. So implement the solution once you've chosen it, and the one that best meets the goals. Some people get so involved in testing solutions, they don't take action. And so I would just say, once you get close, just start moving. It's like a car without power steering. You got to get moving in order to steer the wheel. And then taking action, then finally assess the results. And the results were in September of 1822. 23 years after the Rosetta Stone had been unearthed on the west bank of the Nile, the code to hieroglyphics was cracked. And we find that many people afterwards tested Champollion's findings and the group effort, the individual effort, all combining. And his groundbreaking work in deciphering hieroglyphics opened the window for an ever-expanding group of Egyptologists internationally to peer into the minds of the ancient Egyptians. And it deepened everyone's understanding of their social, cultural, and religious fabric, and leaving an indelible mark in the world of Egyptology. And so with all of this, I just say, evaluate everything. Nothing can be managed unless it's measured. And so you must measure before you can manage. And so determine the effectiveness of the solution. This involves assessing whether the problem has been resolved or minimized. And some questions help to unpack our own ways of assessing and measuring results. Did you achieve your goals? Were there any unintended consequences? Use this feedback to refine your approach and improve your problem-solving skills for future challenges. So I just want to say this is kind of the backdrop to the mysterious Rosetta Stone Traveling Exhibit Project. And you can go to rosettacrazy.com to learn more about it. That's Rosetta, Rosetta. That's 7 steps to solving any problem. rosettacrazy.com and learn more about this. And I hope this has been an instructive, eye-opening experience. And thanks so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to review this information.
Help the Rosetta Stone Traveling Exhibit Project transform an ancient artifact, the Rosetta Stone, into a modern metaphor for problem solving. And that's an order.